I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Boulder Valley School District Board of Education for Tuesday, June 9th. Our regular meeting. Sandy, will you please call the roll?
Albright.
Here.
Belleville. Here. Benford. Here. Fuqua. Here. Marquis. Here. Myers.
Here.
Reed.
Thank you. Will you all please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Would like to remind all who are here today, this evening, in our audience and on television, the mission of the Boulder Valley School District. The mission of the Boulder Valley School District is to create challenging, meaningful, and engaging learning opportunities so that all children thrive and are prepared for successful, civically engaged lives. As we've had that mission for a while now and working hard on it. So to start tonight, we'll start with our superintendent's report after we've just had a work session, but for the business meeting, Dr. Messenger.
Great. President Albright, members of the board, welcome this evening, and thank you for attending the work session where we had a chance to visit about an update on the strategic planning process. And again, I would just repeat what I said in the last hour. I'm very pleased with the progress we're making and look forward to continuing to provide updates to you and the community. So one of the things I do want to mention, and I did reference this in the work session, is that Prakash Nair, who is the lead on our team that's working with us around innovation planning and the bond construction, his team was in the district today, so we had a chance to work with him. And on August 11th, prior to your regular business meeting, we will have a work session. And Prakash and his team will be with us and have a chance to share and provide you information about their work, answer questions that you might have. So to look forward to that, and it'll be a public meeting. The community will be welcome to attend, and we'll do some invitations to our parent advisory groups as well to join us. So again, we're making very good progress on this beginning of phase one planning and really setting the stage for a lot of good work in phase one. And many folks working hard, and we've added some new project managers under Don's leadership, Don Orr's leadership, and getting contracts set and really setting the stage for intense work that will be in phase one. So more updates on that as we proceed. On your consent agenda tonight is student fees. This is an annual event for you where we bring forward to you either new fees or adjustment in fees, and included in your packet is an explanation of our fee structure and how it works, and to recover costs associated with that so our students can have rich learning environments. So again, we look forward to your support. That helps us as we prepare for the start of school in the fall. So student fees are on your agenda. I wanted to mention some work that's going on at the state level just briefly. A few years ago, we formed the Superintendent's Coalition, and I have assumed a leadership role with that group. And so we worked through this last session and had some success, not as much as we had hoped, I don't believe, but we're convening in a couple of weeks to begin planning our work for the fall in the next legislative session. Clearly, two of the areas that we will continue our focus on is around school funding. I also believe student assessment will continue to be, and we've had some conversation about student data privacy as well. So very consistent with BVSD's legislative platform. It's a good group of folks from throughout the state, and we work very closely with the Colorado Association of School Executives. Bruce Coy, the executive director, and Elizabeth Rosen, their lobbyist, will participate in this upcoming meeting in June. So I just wanted to let you know, and I'll provide you updates as we go forward with the work of that group. We have hired over 30 administrators this spring, either to new positions within our district or filling vacancies that occurred or filled interim positions. We had kind of all of that going on and some retirements also. So we've been very busy. Our process is that it's fairly intense, getting to become a finalist for any of our positions, but I'll speak to the administrative position this evening. And so we have a committee interview process, and I personally participate in an interview with each of the finalists, and I'm a part of the debriefing with the team, leadership of the team, and ultimately work towards the recommendation that I forwarded to you. So I would just say overall, we feel very good about the quality of the candidates that we've been able to attract into the positions and become finalists, and ultimately our recommendations to you. The only interims that we have for next year are really those that have occurred very late in the hiring season, but otherwise we have been able to fill the positions, not just fill them, but fill them with really high quality, in many cases experienced professional education leaders. So I'm feeling very good about that. We are planning a reception for you to meet our full administrative team, but specifically we'll probably have you meet in person also our new administrative hire. So we haven't got that date quite nailed down yet, but likely to be a breakfast or a lunch sometime in August. So as we bring folks back, we'll get that to you in advance, and hopefully you'll be able to join us for that kind of informal gathering and at least have a chance to meet and greet members of our administrative team. So you requested that, and we'll get that on your agenda. This Thursday, Friday, 4 of us of our administrative team will be attending the Future Ready School Summit in Denver. This is hosted by the Alliance for Excellence in Education and also the U.S. Department of Education. Dr. Ron Cabrera, Andrew Moore, and Kelly Sane will join me for this conference. So it's around digital learning and innovation in learning environments. And so these have been a series of regional meetings hosted around the country. We looked at the agenda and felt like it was an opportunity for at least for us to expand our thinking some around that and maybe help form a network of other schools and school leaders in the Rocky Mountain West at least. So I'll let you know how that goes, but we're going to commit a little time to that this week and spend some time in Denver at that conference or that meeting. Also, I just wanted to remind you we have 2 different consensus groups of training going on this summer. One is next week and one is the following week. So Diane Seahaver, who you've come to know, will be facilitating 2 3-day workshops. So you've all participated in this workshop or have dropped in or have had the training in other venues, but it is a chance for us, for our employees, teams, if they want to go through the training, could be departments or school teams, this is what we do, so they will have a chance to participate in that. And this is really the first time we have more formally opened it up to the community and have a tuition associated with that. And we have so some nonprofits and some other groups that are interested in the work we're doing around that. So we will have some in each of the 2 groups that will be community members, and they will go through the same training and learn along with us. That was a model I worked with when I was in Montana and really kind of helped spread the good word and some good practices around consensus development. So if you're interested in just dropping in, you'd be welcome to. Sandy can give you the details. They're, as you know, day-long sessions, so you could drop in any time or stop in for lunch. So it's Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of next week, and then the following week, I think it's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But if you want more details, we can get those to you. They're here at the PDC, Professional Development Center. So those are the summer planning consensus training. I also sent out to you a week ago or so our summer school program. Dr. Cabrera and Roy Holloway prepared a memo that described that in kind of a table that showed you those. And again, if you would like to visit any one or a combination of those, if you just drop Sandy an email or give her a ring, she'll work back with Roy, and he may be your tour guide or we'll connect you with somebody. But we'll work around your schedule. Rather than trying to organize a group to go, we'll just work around your interests and needs and facilitate that. So just drop a note to Sandy or to Christina if Sandy's not in the office. Christina or Sandy will take care of that for you. Then the last thing I would mention, but I'd be glad to answer any questions, is that I'd sent you a note over the weekend. I will be attending the American Association of School Administrators National Legislative Conference in Washington, D.C. in early July. When I was the Federal Relations Director in Montana, this is a conference I attended regularly, and I haven't since I moved to Colorado. But given our work with Senator Bennett's office around ESEA reauthorization, and our team has sort of stayed in this conversation with Senator Bennett's policy advisors, we saw this was probably a good time to further that conversation. I just got a confirmation on an appointment with Senator Bennett one of the days that I am there. So this format is pretty much making legislative connections is what it is. There is some little bit of conference around, a little bit of training, but mostly it's around making connections with our own congressmen or senators, but also other leaders in areas related to education. So I've found this 2-day meeting worthwhile in the past. So anyway, I just wanted to let you know I'm going to participate in that, and I will let you know how my conversation with Senator Bennett goes with regard to ESEA, student data privacy, and other relevant topics. So anyway, with that, I will end my presentation, my report. Lori, I'd be glad to answer any questions on these topics or others from members of the board.
Okay, thank you. Board members, any questions? Or Tina?
Could you get a quick update on the Casey air quality? Just, I think you
Yeah.
had sent an email that some of the air quality monitoring in the symptom survey was near completion,
Yes.
and that we might be there, but not quite yet. If you could just expand on
I'd
that,
be
thanks.
glad to. So all is complete. What isn't complete is the analysis and what Dr. Mike Van Dyke, as I've exchanged emails with him and visited with him, is that he really wants, by design, that he puts his eyes on the air quality along with the symptom survey, and wants Richard Shaughnessy and Brad Turk, our other experts who worked with us. So unfortunately, it's taken a little longer for all those connections to occur, but the symptom survey is done and the data collected. I think he's done his analysis of that. And mostly what he's reported to us informally, but I will get you the formal report, is that there isn't anything in the symptom survey that is out of the normal or causes concern given his database with other schools that he's administered this with. So we had about a 75% participation rate. I think ultimately that's where they wound up. The data from the air quality assessments, remember there was that kind of intensive air quality that they did during the week. They did the symptom survey. By design, they do that 5 times. This was the first time. So I have seen those results. Hydrogen sulfide, basically no evidence of hydrogen sulfide in building or out of building, rated like 0 level. So they were very encouraged by that in this first comprehensive reading. These devices were a little more sensitive than those we've used before. Anyway, they felt particularly good about that. So as you recall, they tested outside of the building and in the building both. They checked for other substances in the building at the same time. And so one of the things we're looking for is just the air circulation. So checking, to make sure, because when we rebalance the system, so in addition to finding the source for the hydrogen sulfide, that's been our work, through the last couple of years in the spring, but also when we rebalanced the system over spring break, was to make sure that we had good ventilation and good airflow throughout the building. And so that's, that's some of the data they want to check too. And I think that, we'll continue, those are adjustments that can be made to just, get the oxygen in the right place, and all of it's within an appropriate range. I think they just want to continue to refine it. So, but we'll get the full report. I've had a chance to see the technical report from the folks who did the assessment on the air quality, and what Mike wants to do is, have those come together. He'll get them to me. Our plan, we'll get a report out to the school community. Obviously, we'll get it on the website and we'll get it to you. But just from what data I have seen and the information they've shared with me informally, I think we've achieved a level of progress regarding air quality that we had hoped to with our efforts of finding source and mitigating those. And this rebalancing was really critical as well. But, Mike intentionally wanted to do 5 of these. And so we were going to do 2 this spring, but it wound up that the first symptom survey ran so late that it would have been kind of right on top of it to do it again. So we did run the 2 air quality tests, the intense test, but we didn't run the second symptom survey in the spring. He wants to come back about 2 weeks into the school year and run the air quality test and the symptom survey at the beginning of the year again. So that was his judgment that it was just too close to the end of the year and kind of right on top of the other one. So, but I'll get you a report, I'm hoping, in the next week or 2. So I just sent him an email. We could go and ask where we were. I think they're just having trouble catching up with HOA because of summer schedules and things. So, but good news so far.
Any follow-up to that question? I had a question to follow up to that. I think you just said that this latest test involved a more sensitive instrument. Is that because we've worked with 2 different companies on air quality? And if so, why did we do that?
Well, it was suggested here that we might go back out and see. Quest is the company we work with. We weren't dissatisfied with Quest. Everybody thought their work was fine, but we also, it's a contract, so we put it back out and ultimately selected another provider, and obviously another reputable provider. And so the equipment they were able to use or chose to use is just a little more sensitive. I think it's a newer model is what it is. It was a combination of a different vendor and probably a little bit around timing and availability of the devices. So this will be the same device then we'll use going forward. So,
And are the results from both of those testing companies consistent with each other?
Yeah, I mean, we're using somewhat different equipment. You might recall that some of the warning we got about changing equipment was if we make too radical a change or equipment that hasn't been tested, then you're dealing with another variable. But I think these are comparable enough that there isn't worry about that. If anything, these are a little more sensitive. So if there were a problem, it'd be more likely to pick it up. And the fact that it didn't pick it up at all is probably a good sign. So.
Okay, thank you on the Casey question. Anything else? Shelley?
You mentioned that we were checking for other substances. Could you say more about that?
Yeah, I think carbon monoxide, carbon dioxide. I mean, other, just mostly around the ventilation is what they were looking for. because that was really some of what, we had some elevated levels, you might recall, in the building. I think it was pre-spring break, because I think it was before the rebalancing. So they went back to some of those same locations. What I have in a table, I don't know if this will all be in the report, but I'd be glad to share it. They actually did some of the early assessments around the ventilation and flow to these, and all of them were down. Some of them, I mean, mostly it's just when you put 600 children in a building, or humans, and so, you need that ventilation to to make sure you're getting fresh air circulates. That's really what they were checking for on those tests, to make sure that all of the different, remember, he identified areas within the building he wanted specifically have tested because of the nature of the airflow and also other reports that occurred in the building earlier. They went back and checked on some of those spaces, the second test they did this spring. And so I think that we'll continue to monitor some of those and make adjustments in just the ventilation and the airflow. But all within the safe range.
And do you know who our new provider is of testing?
Don, do you recall the name of the company that is, I probably could find that. Let me look.
And do you know what levels they're measuring at, how sensitive their equipment is?
I do have all that data, and that'll be in the final report, Shelley.
And we're waiting for Van Dyke to meet with Shaughnessy before we get this
No, they're not
report?
trying to meet. I think they're just trying to exchange data and conversation. And at some point, I guess, if they don't connect, then we'll probably just release them separately. But I think, part of the design of having them on top of each other was so that they could put the data together and show if there's anything they're seeing in the symptom survey, if they have anything reported from an area of the building, if we have an elevated level of something, and are we getting anything around symptoms related. That's the idea of doing them on top of each other. So we'll lose something if they don't have a chance to collaborate the data, but,
And
that's where we are.
do you know if there's going to be any revision in the symptom survey to encourage greater participation?
I have not had that conversation with Mike Van Dyke, Dr. Van Dyke, but you had suggested that maybe we'd have folks not identify their location, that maybe that would help participation rate. I guess probably, if Mike knows why folks didn't participate, I don't know if he knows that, but if he does, if it's related to that, then, that might be something. I mean, what we lose in that is if there's a concern expressed, then we don't know where in the building it's coming from if they don't identify the room or the location. So it's a trade-off. But, if the participation rate would increase doing that, we'd lose some data. But, the participation rate might be data that's helpful to us. But I have not had that conversation, but would plan to before they do the August-September administration.
Okay, board members, other questions, comments? Anything else? Well, thank you for sending out this summer schedule,
Yeah.
the summer school schedule. I was just amazed at how many different programs we have, both
Lots
for
going on.
young kids who are trying to do recovery for if they've slipped up during the year, and then some adult literacy. I was just surprised at the level of summer school that we operate. So thank you for sending that out.
Going on. One of the things that we're doing as a part of the strategic plan, the success effect work, is really, and we had started it and we are going to go deeper with this, is really an evaluation of all that programming, because 3 years ago now, under your leadership, redirected several $100,000 towards summer programming. And so we expanded notably when we did that, particularly around literacy, and we've expanded participation because of that. And now we need to make sure it's having the desired intended outcome. And under Roy Holloway, who reports, he's an instructional director under Dr. Cabrera. We want to make sure with that investment of time and resources that we're getting the kind of output that we would expect. So I would say some of those may change if we're not seeing that. So,
Jenny.
So I'm going to piggyback on that, Lori, and just say that I'm scheduled to visit Emerald and Broomfield Heights on June the 22nd, which is June 20. Okay, yes, whenever. Thank you, Sandy. And so if anybody would like to, if any of my fellow board members would like to join me, I'm sure that's fine. And it's always fun to get out to Broomfield.
Thanks. Okay, any other comments or questions for the superintendent? Okay, the next item on our agenda is public hearing and public participation, and we have no one here this evening. So the next item after that is board communication. So, board members. Anyone have anything that they'd like to share or comment on? Shelley?
I just want to check in with board members on the new agenda setting format, whether people like it, whether creates another obstacle or whether it's helpful. Sam?
Yeah, I was going to bring that up during agenda setting, but since you're asking me now, my understanding is we fill out the form, and then a decision is made by the agenda setting committee as to whether it gets on the agenda. Is that correct? Or maybe you could walk me through the process one more time.
I think that's the basic idea.
Okay.
Yeah. Jenny, Lori, do you have?
And if it's not, if deemed worthy of the meeting agenda, it reverts to an ROI?
So I would address that, because,
Okay.
I don't think that we would ever say somebody's question was not worthy. I think the discussion would be how best to answer the question and whether, because, and you're gonna, Tina, I know you've got something to say about this, because sometimes you might have an RFI that really isn't yet ripe for agenda, and it also gives us, or might just be better answered in written format. It's not that it's not worthy. I just don't.
Oh, I will
and so-
retract that
so I just
phraseology.
wanted to respond to that. And then the other thing is, I totally lost my train of thought. So the agenda setting would just sort of decide what is the best format for addressing the question. And we might also do some tinkering around we do have a board policy so that if a particular question takes, a really long spell of time, then we might bring it back for board discussion about whether the board wants staff to spend that much time. And that also gives us a way to look at, it puts the question in written format so that agenda can look at it and try to figure out, because we've struggled sometimes in agenda with trying to figure out what, you ask for something in a meeting, and then we come together and realize we don't understand what it is, and that gives us a chance to look at it, hopefully before agenda setting, and get additional information if we need it, so that we can flesh it out enough to make a meaningful response.
I think it's good to ask for it in writing.
I added 4 agenda items today using the new form and process, and I just love how this is so much more transparent to us as a group, because I felt like our other items for the last year and a half have just been lost. You couldn't really see them, and so now I know where they are. One suggestion that I mentioned to 2 people, but would be, instead of selecting one form to have the question answered, you could select as many as might apply, because it was unclear to me whether it might necessarily be an information item or a work session or a board meeting. I kind of had no idea on a couple, and all of mine include a policy letter that could be affected, so all of them were under the policy box as well. And then the other thing would be, I'm going to try to develop a habit to click on that link, and I like that. I'm so grateful we have the link in board docs, because now I know where the link is instead of searching through an email. But if you do respond, if the agenda setting meeting makes a decision, it'd be great if you could just ping an email to me, so I kind of know when it's going to be teed up. So that would be my only other suggestion. But I can try. I'm going to try to just keep going back to the link.
No, I think that's a good idea. So we can do that,
Shelley.
right, Sandy? Just send an email back when somebody's added something or when we've made a decision, right? So I think we should discuss whether, we want to decide at every agenda setting meeting every item that's on there. Like, I think that would improve the speed at which we address things. If there are 5 things on the list, if we would make a determination about all 5 each meeting and get those on the agenda. So does that feel good to the board, to that kind of response?
That feels prompt. Yeah.
If you can do it, great.
Yeah. And you do that in consultation, obviously, with Dr. Messenger and what the staff
he's in the
time
meeting.
can absorb, and
Yeah.
how we might plot that out on our future meetings. But yeah, I mean, overall, I appreciate your attention to the issue and the documentation of it. So, thanks. We'll see how it works.
Yeah, we can give it a try. Yeah. Okay. Other board member comments? Okay. Well, I would say I did two great things in the last 2 weeks since we've met. And one was to go to the Bobby G Awards, which are awards for Colorado musicals, and it's at the Buell Theater. And Fairview was one of the schools that was nominated for their play that they did this year. And it was just incredible to have the whole auditorium just filled with kids who were music kids and theater kids, and on stage, just like the Academy Awards or the Tony Awards. It was just fabulous. It was, it was just, it was wonderful to see kids being so enthusiastic about theater and music and their schools and the work that they were doing. So it was just a ton of fun. And the other event that several of us went to last Wednesday, was the Dwyer suit, and we are plaintiffs in that lawsuit, and that's the suit that is brought to deal with the question of Amendment 23 in the Constitution. And it was before the Colorado Supreme Court, and I think the lawyers are hopeful that the decision will be made later in the summer or maybe in the fall. They're not really sure what to hope for even, but thank goodness we're finally bringing this question forward about funding for public schools since we've all been cut so much. So I'm really optimistic, and it was really interesting, and I was really proud of the work that our lawyers did on our behalf. I thought they did a great job, and we'll see how it all turns out. So the justices asked good questions and were engaged and knowledgeable, and there was a lot of young people in the room and a lot of people who care about education in the room. So we'll just see how it goes. But we're waiting to see what the outcome of that is. Okay, board members, anything else? Okay, the next item on our agenda is the consent grouping, and I'll read them. 6.1, personnel items. 6.2, approval of minutes, May 26, 2015, regular meeting. 6.3, 2015-16 cash management. 6.4, acceptance of donation from Broomfield High School. 6.5, authorization for approval to accept bids and authorize contracts during July 2015. 6.6, award of contract for architectural and engineering services for bond projects for Phase 1. 6.7, award of contract for civil construction services for bond projects for Phase 1. 6.8, award of contract for construction manager, general contractor services for bond projects for Phase 1. 6.9, award of contract for purchase of 2 Type A buses that are wheelchair accessible. 6.10, Blue Sage / Eagle Place boundary changes. 6.11, cancellation of July 14th and July 28th, 2015 board meetings. 6.12, proposed fees and adjustments for 2015-16. 6.13, a grant, food services, equipment, and education, the Lifetime Foundation. 6.14, grant, instructional services and equity, consolidated federal programs, titles 1 through 3. 6.15, a grant, special education, IDEA, Part B, Colorado Department of Education. 6.16, a grant, special education, IDEA, Part C, preschool, Colorado Department of Education. Do I have a motion to approve? Jenny, second. Sam? Great. Would anyone like to pull any of these items? No. Does anyone have a comment or a question on any of these items? Tina?
Just on the fee schedule that you mentioned, I noticed that there's a charge for headphones for assessment. So I was just curious, is that a mandated assessment, or is that a BVSD homegrown assessment?
It is a requirement that on the state assessment, that some of the subtests require that the students have a headset. So it would be, so there could also be, they could also possibly be used for other forms of assessment, but I do know that this issue has come about because of the auditory needed on some of the subtests for the park assessment. I believe it's the park assessment.
So who's being charged the $5?
In some cases, the school parent groups are paying for it. In some cases, the schools are paying for it. In some cases, the students are paying for it. So I think we've got all that going on.
So on something that's required, is it okay for us to charge?
Yes, I think it is okay. We've done this before. So this is So, Michelle, I don't know if you have additional information about this, or Ron Cabrera, on the, I think this is a fee that's allowable. I honestly can't tell you, Tina, how many actually charge the fee. We don't have that data.
Yeah.
So what the fee structure does is sets a fee that can be charged. It doesn't say that we will charge. But one of the burdens that schools felt is they didn't have resources to pay for these. And as you know, there is no state resource that comes with state funding or student assessment. So they have found a provider that headphones, they're not headsets, they're really headphones, earplugs, what they are, buds, that can be for this amount of money. So this would allow them to charge that fee if they chose to, by your approval. But I don't actually know how many are doing it. We could find that out, but I don't know it.
That's for this school, I'm sorry.
No,
That's
it
for
might,
this school year, so we've already done it, right?
yeah, it might be good to know how much we're charging, just,
Well, not more than this, because
no, how many times,
Oh.
the counts, not the amount that's being charged. Sorry for not being clear, so,
we could probably inventory our schools and see.
okay.
Shelley?
Yeah, the same thing popped out at me, and I wondered if we had done that in the past. So you say
We
we
have
have
for
done
2
that in
years.
the past. And then so I just looked at the attachment here that says what fees are allowed and which ones are not allowed. And it does say materials required for core area classes are not, you should not be charging fees for those. So I know this isn't a class, but it is, I mean, are we considering it not required to take this test?
It's not a class.
We're just considering it not a class. I don't know, it seems like a fine line based on this discussion of what's allowed and not allowed. Because it includes instructional materials. Is that an instructional material? But it's not instruction? I don't, you know. It just seems like it's insult to injury to ask kids to pay for their own headphones to take a test that no one wants to take. And so,
Kind of catch-22 on that one. If we're going to opt out, Sam?
Yeah, so I think I ask this every year, but we make accommodation for low-income students with all these fees. Is that based on the FRL or?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, automatically for free and reduced, but we make provisions, yeah. So no one's denied the opportunity as a result of that. And I would guess with regard to the other question, no one would be denied the opportunity to take the test either. And we would provide them with a headset, so. But again, I don't know how many actually pay the fee. It just allows for them to collect it if they choose to do it that way.
And the other fees do add up. I mean, it's a lot, and I don't know if, I think I'm repeating myself, but if there's a way to slide the scale some so that folks who are just over FRL but who are struggling can get help, or if individual school PTAs work with them on that, I don't know. But it sure can add up for working families.
Yeah. I mean, I would just say my experience in this district is that our school communities are very sensitive to this issue, and if families are in need, regardless if they technically qualify for free and reduced, I'm confident our schools work with them, and our parent organizations are very generous around these issues. And so I'm not saying that, I absolutely agree with you, Sam. We certainly appreciate that, but we will work with families. I mean, our policy addresses the qualification for free and reduced
Right.
lunch, but that, again, I don't say, it's a line. I wouldn't say it's a bright line. I think our school communities are very sensitive to the impact this has on families. And sometimes, as you know, family resources can be situational, so they might be at a particular point, they
Right.
just need some help, but, by next year, they're fine. And so, but clearly, the fee structures allow for that to occur and provide the kinds of experiences that we wouldn't otherwise be able to provide because of the lack of general fund resources.
Anyone else? Tom, Jane? Tom?
So I have a question on 6.10, Blue Sage Eagle Place boundary changes. As you know, we had a meeting with Louisville City Council about issues in Louisville with overcrowding, LES, and so on and so forth. My question is, what was the response of the Louisville City Council to this change?
We only, my understanding, Tom, is that we only heard from one city council, and that was from the Lafayette City Council, where you would receive that in your last packet, an email, I think it was, that we included in your attachment, that they supported this and felt it was appropriate, and that, the children reside in Lafayette and they'd like them to attend Lafayette schools. We did not request a formal response from the Louisville City Council, and I do not believe we received one. So I just don't know that there was any comment from the council, and I don't even know if there were, I didn't personally receive anything from a council member on it either. I don't know if Glenn did or not, but I would think it would have been brought to my attention had we had a response from the council. I will say this move is consistent with some of the recommendations we received from the citizens, that we would consider actions like this. So I think there was general agreement that this was a doable thing and was consistent with trying to kind of, separate the Louisville citizens' attendance area from the Lafayette. So, and doing it in a timely manner before most of the area was developed was also part of the request. And also grandfathering students into the school or the level they were at, which has been our practice all along. So, I don't want to speak for the city council for sure, but I think that this is consistent with some of what they were hoping to see us work on, as well as the citizens that had given public comment and had came and testified before you one evening as well.
We discussed this, they had a number of different things,
Yeah.
as you recall.
Right.
This was one of them.
One of
I
them.
just wondered if they had discussed about some of the other things, or we've had conversations about the other things.
We've not had any formal conversation, Tom, with council. The only thing which you're aware of is that some of the work we did around capacity management and enrollment projections for Louisville Elementary School, they wanted to have a more comprehensive, longer-term view of that. So we drafted a document, we sent them to the city council. We shared a copy of that with you as well. That's probably been 6 or 8 weeks ago now. And in speaking with the city manager for Louisville, the city of Louisville, Malcolm, he indicated that he had received some comment from council members regarding that. So what we asked to do just for logistics is we asked him if, positive or negative, if he has input from the council members to kind of collect those for us and send them our way, and we'd take a look at them and see if they were things that we could easily accommodate or if it required further discussion. I have not seen a response back, maybe staff has, but that's where that is right now. And that was with
Okay.
regard to the document that we copied you
Right.
on as well.
Yeah, that was a draft. And
So I would say it's probably a work in progress. I mean, a part of, as you recall, looking at that planning document, it's a bit dynamic in that it, we'll review it annually and then we'll adjust. And so, some of it may evolve as we go forward. Again, things have slowed down in that area, probably because of price as much as anything else. And so, which is what we had kind of forecasted would occur given our most recent history. But we've also seen that change as well, so it might pick up the pace again. But, so I think on that point, we're waiting to hear back from Malcolm.
So we expect to hear
I would
something
think we
formally
would,
from them
yeah,
or
I would think this
informally?
summer, and I could have Glenn follow up and just see, but that was the direction we provided to Malcolm most recently, is one,
Yeah.
he just compile it from his governing board and get it back to us, and
But they had asked for that document,
Yeah.
and we provided
Yeah.
it, so I would have hoped that they would provide feedback.
yeah, so we can follow up and see if Malcolm's received information from his council.
Thank you.
Well, I wanted to also talk about the fees, and only to say that I think it's great that low-income students are not charged. I think it's really important and really appropriate. And Sam, I appreciate your question, just to make sure that, kids aren't overburdened or families aren't overburdened as they begin to add up. One year I paid $1,000 in fees for my kids in sports, music, and IB and AP tests, or IB tests, I think. Anyway, it's just pretty outrageous of what the fee is. And I'm not quibbling with the BVSD stance. I mean, I think we have a good policy, and I think it's appropriate. But what really does frustrate me is that public education should be free, should be thorough and free. And in this case, it's not. And it's just one example where we either ask parents to contribute to PTOs or whether we ask parents to pay for their own children's supplies. And so I'm going to vote for this, and I support it. But I just think it's really important for people to know that, in fact, the people who are participating in public schools really are paying more fees and more money than it appears on the surface. We do this one time a year. We look at the fee structure, we bring forward new ideas, we restate what we've already done or what the fees already are. But I just think it's important to acknowledge that families and kids are paying more money for what should be a free education. So,
Can I piggyback on
Jenny.
your and Sam's comments? Because one of my real issues with the graduation guidelines adopted by the State Board of Education is that so many of the so many of the testing graduation requirements that are built into those guidelines involve tests that students have to pay for. So if, in fact, most of them, except for the park, which we now don't have in all areas anymore, you have to pay to take an AP exam, which would be a graduation, which would be one way you could demonstrate proficiency. And the problem is not that some of those you have to pay for, but that almost all of the ways that you can demonstrate proficiency, according to the State Board of Education, are fee-based tests. And so, it's just to build on your concerns, I think it just adds one more roadblock for kids who are trying to graduate from high school and may not have the financial wherewithal now to take the test they need to graduate.
Well, I'll just finish up that. But on the other hand, if they are low income and they can't graduate or they can't show the proficiency, I'm sure that the schools would find a way to pay for that. There'll be some allowances made, but it's difficult, embarrassing, and frustrating.
Well,
all
in
at
our
the same
district might, but what about,
Right, right.
what about districts that have,
It's about all kids.
yeah, what about districts that have a lot of low-income kids and
Yeah.
not a lot of extra funding?
They suffer. Okay, any other questions, comments? Sandy, will you please call the vote? Thank you.
Albright.
Yes.
Belleville.
Yes.
Benford. Fuqua.
Yes.
Marquis.
Yes.
Myers.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is agenda setting, and we've already talked about our process.
Fill out the form.
Fill out the form.
Good work, Sam.
So, anyone have anything to add, or Tina?
Well, should I say what I put on the agenda?
let us know.
Or should we just let everyone read it?
Oh,
Okay.
tell
all
the
right.
public,
Here's
tell
what
the
we
world.
did. I did today, this afternoon, one on the open enrollment policy. Just looking at the language around preference of students based on whether they're in and out of district, and also on the percentage of time the parent works at the school, which are different for charter and not charter schools. I added a question about the vision of technology in BVSD, and also looking at the balance of technology with nature, and how that we might want to consider the screen time our kids get, the amount of nature exposure they get, and also trying to inform parents as we increase technology in the classroom and we increase their screen time. Should parents be given some thoughts about decreasing screen time at home so that their whole recommended screen time doesn't exceed the recommended amount by the Pediatricians Association and all that. The other was going back to one that I brought up before, but I just put it on this new form, whether or not social emotional curricula and instructional materials go through the normal process for materials adoption with district review, or whether it should be more of a decision at the school level and school-based. And then the last one was just a broad discussion about success metrics, which were really addressed well during our work session. The transparency of those metrics to the board and to the community, and whether we should add into policy a specific time every year that we'll review metrics, so that we can really count and look forward to and know that we'll have that moment in time to do that kind of work. So that's it. It was great. It was great form.
Oh, good. Thank you. I'm glad you tried it out, and it sounds like we've got some interesting discussions ahead. So, thank you. Anyone else on agenda setting? Okay. Well, then, if there's no other business to discuss today, this meeting's adjourned.
Just a reminder, you have